Welcome to the Spiritual Lifestyle Podcast, formerly known as Chapters of Motherhood. I'm your host, Veronica Moss, and I've returned with an evolved vision. I'm currently in studio passionately crafting brand new episodes set to officially debut in the spring of 2024. We now focus on promoting spiritual growth in all areas of life, including career, relationships, and mindful parenting. While you're waiting for the new season to kick off, why not revisit some of the classics? We've got your favorite episodes from Chapters of Motherhood lined up for your enjoyment. So sit back, relax, and let the Spiritual Lifestyle Podcast lead you on a journey of self-discovery and growth. Stay tuned. Welcome to your renewed spiritual sanctuary, the Spiritual Lifestyle Podcast. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Chapters of Motherhood Podcast. Today, I am doing a Halloween special. And in this episode, we're going to talk about ghost stories, haunted houses, and spiritual visitors. But first, I want to remind you of the giveaway. You still have one more week to enter. The rules are in the show notes, but you know what? Let's just go over it really quickly. The giveaway is the Halo Skincare Glow Kit Trial. And that includes the cleanser, the firming toner, the EGF Rejuvenation Serum, and the EGF Cream. Oh, also the Glycolic Miracle Mix. So to enter, just subscribe to this podcast, follow me on Instagram at Chapters of Motherhood, write a review of this podcast, and take a screenshot and tag me in it on Instagram. I will select the winner on Instagram Live, and the date and time will be announced at a later time. Now, back to today's special episode in honor of Halloween. So here are my ghost stories, and by ghost stories, I mean here are my empath clairsentient experience. And in case you just said gesundheit and you don't know what these words mean, I'm just going to read a quick definition on them. Empaths are highly sensitive individuals who have the keen ability to sense what people around them are feeling and thinking. A clairsentient can, just like the empath, can sense feelings and the energy in the room. However, it's more in an intuitive way, spiritual energy. And it goes a little bit deeper. It would be an individual that is highly sensitive to the energy around you, and it could be including living people, spiritual, animals, in the physical and in the spiritual realm, and sometimes even plants. And clairsentient basically translated means clear sensing or clear feeling. So you tend just to feel energy, not so much see it or hear it, but feel it telepathically. So as usual, I will start at the beginning. So when I was a little girl, for some reason, I just could know what was going to happen. I just knew what was happening next. I could wake up in the morning and just tell my mom exactly how my day was going to go, and it would come true. So one time, I don't know how old I was. I must have been pretty young. But one time I was in my room and I was playing with my dolls. And I had a doll that I was just throwing up in the air and catching and throwing up in the air and catching. And then I heard her laugh. And I thought, oh, did my daddy put the batteries back in? Because this doll had batteries and was a talking doll and a laughing doll and a crying doll, right? You know the type, right? So anyway, I flipped her over, I opened her up, and there was no batteries in there. And it scared me because she was laughing. So I dropped it and I ran off. So that was the one thing that I could remember way back then that absolutely scared me. Another time I was having a hard time sleeping. And I happened to be sharing the bedroom with my grandma at the time, and I was little. I don't know how old I was. I know I was little. And I was having a hard time sleeping. I was tossing, I was turning, and I sat up for whatever reason. I just wasn't comfortable, and I sat up. And I saw a female ghost. She was clear. I could see right through her. And she was floating through my room and going towards the next room. And I remember being so scared and not being able to move that I wanted to try to scream. And all I was able to do was let out like this noise, ah, like that. And she turned around, she looked at me, and she was surprised that I could see her. And I was surprised that she looked at me. And she disappeared. And I got the covers and I covered myself over the head and I was like scooting over to my grandma and I was just so scared. Now, another time that I remember was something really weird that had happened. I was 3 years old and I was visiting, I think I had just turned 3 years old, and we were in Mexico visiting my grandfather. And he was dying of colon cancer. And my mom knew that, she needed to go see him. She needed to go be there for her parents and to say goodbye to her father. And she took me with her. And one way or another, I got really sick from trichinosis. The pork that they fed me wasn't completely cooked through, and I got sick. And I just remember Grandpa was sick. He couldn't get up, and he was dying. And then I got really sick. And I told my mom one time, Mom, the only real memory that I have of my grandfather, there's two, but the one that I always remember that I thought was really weird to me was one time you left me there with him and you were leaving and you were getting on a real old looking bus for some reason. And we were both standing outside on this dirt road. My mom is from a very small pueblo, like pueblo. When you think of old time Mexico, that's where she's from, like a small one-horse town type of pueblo back then. It's improved a lot. It's modernized a lot now, but back then. And so I told her, we were on the dirt road and you were in a bus and for some reason you were like really upset and slamming your hands against the back window. And I remember my grandpa holding my hand and telling me, in Spanish he was telling me, but he was telling me, wave goodbye to your mom, wave goodbye to your mom, you're going to stay with me. And I remember not liking that feeling and trying to get him to let go of me. And I pushed my hands, like I pulled my hand away from him. And I started running towards the bus, but there was a bunch of dust. And I go, and then that's it. I don't remember. I ran into the bus and I don't remember anything else. And my mom looked at me like shocked. She was like, that never happened. And I go, yeah, it did. I remember that's the only memory that I have. It has to have happened. And she tells me that never happened. He was dying and you got really sick. And I came to him and I told him, I'm going to take the baby into town, which was, I guess, an hour away or an hour and a half away. And she asked him, do you want me to take you to see the doctor, to go to the hospital? And he said, it's too late for me, daughter. Take the baby, save the baby. And she said that when she was on her way to the town, the main town, that I lost consciousness. And right before we got to the hospital, I had lost consciousness and that she was shaking me and trying to get me to wake up. And so she made it to the hospital and they took over and I was okay, but I almost died. And so she told me, you were both hanging on a thread and I had to take you to the hospital to save your life. And once they told me that you were okay and you needed to recover, I had to leave you in the hospital and go back because at that moment, my grandfather had died. So hearing that story freaked me out because I was like, I was sure that that was a memory and I thought it was really weird. And I don't know how to explain it. You can believe me, you cannot believe me. I thought for years, I think I was, when I finally told her about my memory, I think I was like in my mid-30s when she was telling me that never happened. So for over 30 years, I believed that that was a memory. So with that said, and these experiences that I can remember as a little girl, one time my godmother, my dad's sister, happens to be my godmother, came for a visit. And she was talking to me and she was asking me questions and she would tell me, do you see things? Do you hear things? I guess I'm not sure what her level of psychic was. I'm not really sure what it was, but she could sense it in me. And she was asking me questions about it. And I was telling her, I'm really scared. I don't want to hear my doll laughing. I don't want to see ghosts. And, I don't want to know what's going to happen. I'm really scared. And she said, okay, well, if you're scared, you can turn it off. You can tell it to stop. You can tell it to go away. Basically, she just told me to block it and to say, stop, go away. I don't want to see. And she helped me block it out. So a good, 20 years later, I was married to my first husband and we were going through a lot of problems. If you've been listening from the very beginning of this podcast show, then you would know my first ex-husband was a cheater. He was a liar. He would go out and party all the time. And my last straw plays a part into this story. He had gone out all night and was partying and just, living it up, partying, whatever. And I was upset. And when he finally came home, he was very remorseful. And he must have come home it was something like 4 a.m. And we started fighting and arguing. And I told him, don't even think that you're going to get in bed with me. You're not going to get in bed with me. And I made him sleep on the floor. And I remember just being so angry. And I was just emotionally weak at that moment. I was just so mentally weak at that moment. And I was just angry. And I just remember I was just so angry and I didn't allow him to get into bed with me. So I fell asleep. And next thing I know, I'm floating up and I'm seeing myself. And I'm seeing myself and I'm floating up and I'm floating towards the corner. And it feels like I'm being pulled. And then I get stuck. I got stuck in the corner of the room and I could see everything. I could see my husband sleeping on the floor. I can see myself sleeping on the bed. I could see the whole bedroom. I landed behind the TV that we had in our bedroom. And I remember thinking, this is the TV. How am I up here? And how am I down there? And I started freaking out. What is going on? And I kept trying to move my body and I couldn't. I could feel myself moving, but my body was not moving and I felt paralyzed. And then I started panicking and I wasn't able to breathe. And then I started trying to scream and, everything that I was trying to do wasn't working. And I was trying to push myself back to my body and I couldn't. I was stuck in the corner. So I started trying to move, trying to scream, trying to do something. And finally, I must have said something. I must have done some type of weird scream or not. It's not even a scream, some type of weird murmur or something. Because I saw my husband get up, put his hands on the bed, peek over to me and say, "Are you okay?" And then he stood up and he started to shake me and boom, I was right back in my body. And I looked at him and I started breathing. I'm oh my God, I couldn't move. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't move. I feel like I couldn't breathe. And I asked him how did you know to check on me? I saw you get up and check on me. And he said that I was starting to make really weird noises. Weird noises to the point it scared him and it woke him up and it was just weird noises. So that's when he got me and started shaking me. Well, now I know what that is. That's called astral projection. That means your soul leaves your body. And typically I think you're supposed to be able to breathe and you're supposed to be able to know how to handle it. I had no idea. I had never done that before. It's happened to me a few times. I'm telling you what, astral projection, I do not like it. I don't like it. I feel like I can't breathe. I feel paralyzed. I don't know how to move around and how to get back into my body. I have been able to, but I think that's out of sheer panic. So I don't suggest it. I don't suggest astral projection. It's not cool. I don't like it. So 2 months after that experience, I left him because he had finally confessed to me that he had been cheating. And so I left him at that time. And my self-esteem was just so low. I was so emotionally broken at the moment, at that time, that is. And I felt spiritually vulnerable. Now, during that same week that I left and I was, crying and all that, during that same week, a cousin of mine was murdered. And, it was pretty traumatic for, the family. But a few days later, I had a dream about him. And this was my very first dream. It was my very first past loved one visitation where I didn't even know what was going on. But this was how it went. So in my dream, I was having a normal, regular, dream. And then suddenly my dream got very quiet, very peaceful, very warm. And it got very bright. And it was like a golden aura was happening in my dream where I remember I looked around. I thought, what's happening? This is weird. I still didn't know what was happening, but I knew something was different. And then I saw him and I looked at him and I went up to him and I'm like, "Hi, how have you been?" And I don't remember him saying anything to me. I just remember him showing me a past memory of one time that I had spent the weekend with my cousin at their house. And me and my cousin Suzette are very close, especially as children. And I went to spend the weekend with them, and he showed me a memory of us getting ready and of him sitting on the bed and just laughing. And I thought, okay, that's weird. And then it was over. The dream was over. It went back to my regular dream. And, I was left kind of confused. And I remember waking up thinking, what was that? And then I went right back to sleep. Well, I had 2 more dreams like that within that, I believe it was like 2-week period. I had 2 more dreams like that, where he was just smiling and he was laughing and he was showing me my cousin Suzette and other family members as well. But he was just making it a point to show me Suzette. And so when the funeral came up, I thought, okay, he obviously wants me to say something to her. He always obviously wants me to tell her that he's happy, that he's happy, that he's good. And during the funeral, I tried to talk to her, but she was just so angry and she was so in her grief because when he was murdered in front of his family, in front of his mother, in front of his sister, in front of his wife. And she was just so angry and grief-stricken that she just wasn't there. She was blank. And she wasn't accepting condolences. She wasn't accepting people trying to be there for her. She, was there for the funeral and she was just blank and she was just very angry. It took me years later to really reach out to her and tell her, hey, I was trying to tell you that he was trying to tell you that he's okay, not to be angry, not to be so angry about it, and that he's okay. Anyway, after that, it just seemed like I was suddenly open to energies again. And I wasn't scared this time. I was not scared this time because it was my family members that were coming through. And it felt very peaceful, and it was very different from when I was a little girl. So I wasn't all that scared anymore because it felt peaceful and it was in my dreams. So about a year after that, I was still dating my second husband at that time, and he had moved, he had sold his townhouse and decided to move into an apartment. And he gave me a key, and we were serious back then, and he had given me a key, and I had spent the night one time, like this was like in the very beginning when he first got the apartment. I had spent the night with the intention of he was going to go to work and I was going to just have a late morning and then get ready and go to school because I was in college still at that time. So I was just going to go to school. I was going to, take advantage and sleep in and get ready and go to school. Well, at about 7:30 a.m., I felt like someone was watching me. And I remember I opened my eyes and I looked around. I'm like, okay, no, he's gone. No one's here. Everybody's gone. And I thought, okay, whatever. I got up, went to the bathroom, came back to the room. And I'm the type of person that likes to sleep with the door closed. And I thought, why did he leave the door open? So I shut the door and I got back into bed and I fell asleep. And again, I felt like there was a woman watching me, like an old woman watching me. And I woke up and I looked around and nothing's there. And the door was open. I thought, I must have not shut the door right. So I got up, I shut the door, I wiggled it, I locked it, I made sure it was shut right, and I fell asleep again. And again, I felt someone watching me. So I opened my eyes, I looked around, and I see the door is open. And I was like, fuck that. I got so scared that I was like, I know I locked that door, that I just got so scared. I grabbed my stuff. I didn't even brush my teeth. I didn't even change. I just grabbed my stuff, put on my sandals, and ran out the door. And I remember feeling or sensing this old lady saying, it's okay. I just want to see you sleep. I want to make sure you're safe. And I just kept thinking, fuck that. Get me out of here. I need to leave. And I left. I ran out the door. I got so scared. But as I thought about it throughout the day and throughout the next days, I thought, you know what? It was just an old lady wanted to see me sleep. I'm not going to give it that much thought. I'm not going to be that upset about it anymore. And the funny thing is that old lady, I felt like it was like a grandmother energy and very protective energy and nurturing. And see, the funny thing is that when he moved out and we bought a house, and we moved in together, she followed us and she stayed in Leah's room. Leah could feel her too. And I thought, well, she's harmless. She's very nurturing, so I'm not going to do anything about it. And when I left that house and I moved in with my cousin after I left my second ex-husband, that lady followed us to the next house too. And because Leah shared a room with her cousin, when we left that house, she stayed with the cousin and continued to watch over her. There's no way of proving it. I can't prove it. I can't tell you this is how I know. It's just a feeling that we all have. Leah has told me that she's talked to her cousin and she says that, she feels her there still. So it's a feeling that all three of us have. So anyways, back to 2002, my grandma had passed away. And about 2 weeks after her passing, one morning I felt her energy. I didn't dream of her. I felt her energy. And it was the time of day. It was really early in the morning and it felt like I was about to wake up. But before I could wake up, she came in and visited. And again, I felt the room light up like a golden aura. I felt it get quiet and very peaceful. And I could feel her and I could smell her perfume. And I felt the bed move as if somebody sat on it. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's here to visit me. And then I felt her hand on my hand. I thought, oh, she's here to visit me. And it felt very peaceful, very peaceful. And then she left. And I was able to wake up and I felt so peaceful. I went to my mom. I shared my experience and they were like, oh, you're so lucky. And I thought, oh, she chose me to come to me and to tell me that she's okay. Well, about a week or so later, it happened again. Exact same thing. It happened the same way. I was about to wake up. The room got very warm and peaceful and very bright. And then I felt her sit down. And telepathically, I was like, oh, Abuelita, I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for visiting me. And she put her hand on my hand. But this time, she pulled my hands up. And I could feel my hands just like shoot up while I'm in bed. And I pulled them back down and she pulled them back up. And I remember thinking, no, Abuelita, you're scaring me now. And when I thought that, I didn't say it. I thought it still in my dream state. It just, boom, just disappeared. Everything disappeared. And I opened my eyes and my hands were lifted up. And I thought, that was different. That was different. That was kind of scary. I don't like that. But I don't think that she meant anything bad by it. I think, I'm not really sure what that was about. But I don't think that she was trying to scare me. And I think that when I thought, you're scaring me, she ended the visit immediately. Now, about a year or 18 months after that, my nephew, Mikey, had passed away, and he was only 5.5 years old. And he would actually visit me a lot. I don't remember when the first time he visited me. It had to have been like within a couple of months of his passing. And all I can remember is that it was the same type of visit where I was about to wake up and suddenly, again, room got bright, very warm, peaceful, and I could feel him. And I could feel him climbing on the bed, and it was a completely different energy, completely different. He was very playful and fast. He moved fast and he was playful. And I could feel him going up the bed and quickly giving me a hug. I swear I could feel his arms around my neck, hugging me, and his cheek against my cheek, hugging me. And then he was quickly gone again. And I thought, oh, okay. The energy was completely different because he was young and he was very playful. And Grandma was, in her 90s, and she was very, slow and very calm. And he, like I said, he used to visit me a lot throughout the years. And he would try to play pranks on me. Like he would try to crawl slowly towards me and I would tell him, Mikey, that kind of scares me. And I could feel him jump on the bed. And even in my wake state, once my intuition had gotten a lot stronger, in my wake state, I could still feel him, like feel that playful energy, like quickly come and go. It was just quick come and go. And Grandma's energy would kind of linger a little bit longer. Now, a visitation that actually kind of really surprised me was my first ex-husband's father had passed away, and my father-in-law has come to visit me. And the first time that he came to visit me, It was in a dream, and it was like, a normal, boring, whatever dream that doesn't make sense, right? Your average dream just doesn't even make sense. Well, when he came in, again, golden aura, very peaceful, very warm, and he changed my dream completely. And suddenly I'm in a baby shower. There's pink balloons. There's a bunch of people that I don't know. And it looks to be a baby shower. And I was like, what am I doing here? And then I could see him, and I walked over to him, and I'm like, oh, hi, how are you? And I gave him a hug, and then I'm like, and I looked at him, and he showed me his legs, because when my father-in-law died, he had both his legs amputated due to complications with diabetes. And so both of his legs were amputated when he passed away. And so he showed me his legs, and I'm like, you're walking. And he said, yes. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're dead. And he looked towards the crowd of people, and he shows me my ex-mother-in-law, my mother-in-law, my ex-mother-in-law. And he says, Rita looks so happy. Isn't she so happy? And my mom's name is Rita, and so is my first husband's mom's name is also Rita. They're both Rita. But in this case, he was talking about my mother-in-law. And he showed her to me and says, she looks so happy. I go, oh, yeah. And he goes, I'm so glad that she's happy. And I just kind of looked around like, what am I doing here? And then it just ended. It went right back to my dream. And I thought, okay, he wants me to tell her that she's okay to be happy. And I thought, how am I going to call them? At this point, it had been maybe 2 or 3 years that we had gone through a divorce, and I was not part of the family anymore. When divorces come up, they have to pick their side of the family, right? And it's just things that come up, right? So it had been a while since I had called her and to talk to her. So I thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to all of a sudden out of the blue call up, 2-3 years later and be like, hey, by the way, your husband came and visited me. They already think I'm crazy. This is just going to confirm it, because when we were married, I didn't have this ability. I was not open. And I didn't have this ability, so I've never talked about it. So now that we're divorced, and I'm going to call up out of the blue and be like, hey, by the way, I've also gained this ability, they're going to think I'm a total liar. But I thought, you know what? It's important. It's an important message to get across. So I called her up. I told her about it. And at the time, my ex-husband was having a baby with his girlfriend. And so I told her, I was at a baby shower, and do you know if it's a girl? And she goes, oh, we don't know yet. We don't know. Because I think she was still in her early pregnancy. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just letting you know this is what I saw. And he's happy, and he's glad that you're happy, and it's okay to move on. So about, I don't know, it had to have been 2-3 weeks later that Leah came home and saying, oh, my dad's having a girl. And I'm like, I knew it. I saw the baby shower. I saw the pink balloons. I saw it. And so I was all excited, because I was like, okay, that's confirmation. He was showing me it's a girl. So since then, he's visited me a few times. I believe it's just to say hi, but there was this one time, and this is my first and only time that I've ever had a spiritual warning. And this was really weird. And this was a little over a year ago. And mind you, it's been how many years since we've been divorced? It's been 18 years since we've been divorced. So in my dream, I was picking up Emily from school, and it was daytime, and I was picking her up from school, and then suddenly it turned dark. It turned nighttime, and it got cold. And I thought, this is weird. What's going on? And I looked around, and I saw a man that kind of looked like a janitor sitting down on a bench. And then the more I looked at him, the more he suddenly transformed into my father-in-law. And I remember saying, Lucille, his name. And he turns to me and he said, in Spanish, but in English, he tells me, watch out for her. Or I don't exactly know how to translate it, but he said, cuídala, meaning take care of her, watch out for her, she's in danger type of way is the way that I took it. And when I looked down at Emily, the grip on my hand got stronger on her. And then I looked back up, and then suddenly he was gone, and it was daylight again. That one woke me up. That one was like, what was that? I have never felt that before. That obviously it's a warning. And so I woke up and then I went right back to sleep. And then I thought about it the next morning. And I thought, okay, he's trying to warn me something might happen at school. But it happened to be the last week of school. Like she was out of school 3 days later. So that one kind of got me a little scared. But she was out of school 3 days later and we ended up moving. We moved from one house to another house and, pretty far. So she changed schools and everything. Everything's fine. She's okay. Either way, I took that as a warning. So I was very careful with my little girl. Last year, one of my cousins that I was very close with growing up had passed away. Unexpectedly, she was only 48 years old. They say it was from pneumonia. She had a cough for months, but we don't really know exactly what happened. But she passed away and we were all very devastated over it. And about a month after her passing, I remember telepathically saying to her, I'm open to receive you for a visit if you want to come to me. And I would say that almost every night after her passing, but you know what? It took like about 2 months. And she finally did come and visit. And the first time in my dream, again, everything changed. And suddenly I was on top of a mountain, like with snow. It was weird, but I was like on top of a mountain with snow and it was very bright, very peaceful. And she was there and she was kind of like sitting down. Beautiful. She was a beautiful woman to begin with, but the vision that I had of her was very beautiful. And I thought, oh my God, Elaine, I'm so glad to see you. And she just seemed very peaceful and she said, oh, I'm okay. And as I was looking around, I just saw a bunch of like people like just going up, like it looked like escalators almost, but there was no escalators, but that's what it looked like how they were moving. And they were just moving up from like these mountaintops and towards the clouds. And I'm like, is this heaven? Is this what it looks like? But she just seemed so peaceful. And I remember I was trying to talk to her like, what happened? We love you. Don't think that we didn't. And it just seemed like the more I tried to talk to her, the more peaceful she was. And then she laid down and she just laid down and said, I'm waiting for Danette. And Danette is her oldest daughter. And I thought, okay. And then she kind of like laid down and peacefully closed her eyes. And then suddenly, boom, I was out of that dream. And I was back in my normal dream. I kind of woke up, looked around, went back to sleep. For sure, it was a visit. So the next few times I kept dreaming of her. For weeks, months, I kept dreaming of her. And she would come in. And every time I saw her, she was getting increasingly irritated. And she kept telling me, I need to go to Danette. And so she would end the dream or the visit pretty quickly. And so every time I dreamt of her, she just kept like running off. And I kept telling Elaine, wait, I want to talk to you. Elaine, wait. And she just kept running off. So finally, this last dream, to me, it seems like she's confused. She doesn't know that she's gone and she thinks that she's meeting her daughter. That's what it feels like to me. I could be completely wrong. I don't know. But for me, the way that I'm seeing it, it seems like she's not aware that she's gone. So the last dream that I had of her, again, she was very like in a hurry, very agitated and frustrated that she kept seeing me and not her daughter. And I was trying to tell her, Elaine, do you know that you're gone? And she got angry. And I had never experienced this before. But she got angry at me and she grabbed me by the shoulders. And I felt like we were struggling, like spiritually struggling, like fighting. And I immediately said, Elaine, go into the white light. Elaine, go into the white light. Grandma, help her. And suddenly, boom, done. I woke up and I was like, like that. And my husband's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I think I was in a spiritual struggle. Well, that's it. I haven't dreamt of her since. I think Grandma came and took her into the light. I think. I don't know. But that's it. I haven't dreamt of her since. It's been about, I don't know, it's been months. It's been about 6 months. So those are my experiences with past loved ones and dreams. But I've had other experiences. So when I have gone like house hunting or, moved into other places and found houses or anything like that, I have experienced energies as well. So there was this one time that I went to an open house, and the house was old. It was in a great neighborhood. It was really overpriced, but it was because of the neighborhood. And it was really old and outdated. And so I remember walking around and looking and thinking and just thinking to myself, it was an open house, thinking to myself, well, if we take out this wall, remodel the kitchen, maybe add, a room here. And I was just thinking of how we can remodel the house and make it better. As I was walking around having these thoughts, I felt like I walked through like a cold front or like a cold air. And when I felt that coldness, I felt somebody say, like an old man say, "Don't touch my house. Get out of my house. What are you doing here?" And I was like, oh my gosh. And I ran. I got my husband. I'm like, "This house is haunted." And he goes, "Okay, gotta go, bye." And we just turned around, walked right out. Like, he didn't even question. He didn't ask me what happened. I just told him, "This house is haunted." And he just like, "Okay, let's go." And we just got in the car and we drove off. So that was one time. And since then, every time I do go to open houses or to view houses, every now and again, I'll sense something where some of the owners, and these are usually old people that have passed on either in the home or were living in the home for a long time, where they're a little confused as to, what are you doing in my house? You know what I mean? And they're like a little frustrated, and I can feel like the air is dense. It's a little hard to breathe there. And I could just sense of like, get out, get out. So needless to say, I've never bought a house that I felt those energies in. But let's talk about the haunted house that I did live in back in 2008 to 2010. Okay, this was a townhouse in Santa Ana, California, where I got really lucky that the landlord had just bought the townhouse and needed to rent it out to somebody. And at the time, I really needed to move out on my own and move with my children out on our own. I also talk about this, I think it's in Single Mom. The episode is called Single Mom Part 1. And I kind of touched a little bit on it, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on this episode. So anyway, he had bought this house, and to me, when I walked in, it felt very dark. It felt very heavy. And I knew there was something there, but at the same time, I felt I just couldn't tell him no. I needed to move out on our own. And I thought, okay, no big deal. Like, I could feel dense. I can feel heavy air. I can feel something, but nothing was really coming into my space. So I didn't know what was happening. I just knew something was around. And I thought, okay, no big deal. I don't care. I need this place because it's a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom townhouse in Orange County that he was going to rent me for only $1,300. I'm like, I cannot pass this up. So when we moved in and I started unpacking, like I said, I could feel something, but I didn't know what. And so I remember unpacking in my room and then feeling something. I kept turning towards the closet, and I would walk into the closet, and again, like, it's not in my space, but I could feel like it's backing away. And I thought, okay, I don't really know what's happening, so, whatever. And I kept unpacking, and every single person that came to visit me at that house, you could tell that, like, the hair on their neck would stand up. You could tell, like, all their little hairs were standing up, and you could tell that they were just looking around like, something feels weird in here. And the kids would come and tell me the same thing. They would say, I feel really weird in here. And they would tell me that they didn't like using their bathroom because they always felt like someone was watching them. And they were always opening the curtains, the shower curtains, to check. And like Adam and Leah would tell me, like, I feel like someone's watching me. I get the sense of someone's watching me in the bathroom. I don't like it. And they didn't like being alone. And I had my dog, she's a little Yorkie, and she never used to bark. Like, we used to get excited when she did bark. Well, when we moved in there, she would bark a lot, like towards the corner. In my room, she would bark towards a corner all the time, and nothing was there. And she was very skittish during the time that we were living there. Like, she was just very skittish, and she would bark in a corner in the living room, and she would just bark. And so Leah started wanting to sleep with her. She kept like saying, oh, I want to sleep with Pookie, let her sleep with me. And she felt like comforted by her. And after a few months, it started to affect me because the house, for some reason, was painted burgundy. Like every room was burgundy except for my bedroom. My bedroom was the lightest shade of green ever. And I thought, I don't really like this color. It feels dark, it makes the whole house feel dark. And it started affecting me. And I started feeling depressed for no reason whatsoever. And my mom, she would come and visit me and she was like, I'm going to bring Sister Buthy's, very spiritual lady. She goes to bless the house because like I said, everybody that would walk in felt uneasy. And so we did the blessing of the house and I just started crying. I'm like, Mom, this house is so dark. It's affecting me and I'm scared for the kids because they're saying that they're feeling something weird too. So that's why we had the house blessed. Well, my mom got worried and she's like, okay, I'll pay for the painting because I couldn't afford to paint the house and the landlord wasn't going to do it. She asked me, what color do you want? I go, you know what? I want it white. I feel like it's so dark. Every room needs to be white. And so we painted it white. So once we did that, I felt better. I felt like, okay, it's white. It's a little bit airier. I can breathe a little bit better. Now, I had a friend that we used to work together. And so she spent a lot of time with me and she would spend the night a lot. But for some reason, the ghost liked to mess with her. And she used to sleep in my bed and I had a king size bed and she was like literally on top of me. And she's like, Veronica, I feel something. I feel something's hitting me. Something's hitting my head. Like someone's like knocking on my head. And I'm like, Bunny, you're crazy. Get back on that side. Get off of me. You're knocking me off the bed. And so she was like terrified. But at the same time, she was always there with me. But she was like terrified. And then the dog would bark. And she was like, she's like, I can't. And so I would have to like say out loud, like, leave us alone. Get out. And as soon as I would say that, it would stop. And so, like I'm saying, I always felt like a negative energy around, but it was never messing with me. Finally, Bunny said the same thing. My friend said the same thing. She's like, I don't like using your kid's bathroom because I feel like someone's watching me in there. I thought, oh my God, that is so weird. And she said that with the kids there and they're like, that's so weird. Me too, me too. Everybody was like, yeah, me too. And this happens and that happens and I don't feel right. And, that's why I have the door open. And so everybody had a story to share. Well, one day Leah runs in, it was a morning and we were getting ready. And she runs in and she's like, Mommy, the charger was choking me. I go, what do you mean? And she goes, the charger for my phone, I felt it wrapping around my neck and squeezing. She's like, I think the ghost is trying to kill me. I'm like, Leah, don't be silly. Don't be ridiculous. They can't do that. But at the same time, I was like super scared and I just didn't want her to know that I was scared. You know what I mean? Like I wanted her to think that, I'm strong. I got this. Don't worry about it. But I got so angry and that I went to go see, I don't think that you can call her a psychic. I think she's more of a medium. So I went to go see this lady and I told her what was going on. And she confirmed, she's like, yeah, you have something negative in there and he's very angry. It's a very angry person. And you have a few ghosts in there. Now, I think this is the reason why, because the townhouse complex was right next door to a cemetery. I could be wrong. I don't know. But I think it was those spirits crossing on over. And the house had been emptied. I believe it was empty for like 2 years before, I moved in. So anyways, yeah, she told me you have a few ghosts in there, a few spirits in there, and one of them is really angry and very bad, and he's making the other one do the same things. But, she tells me, they're scared of you. They don't want to go near you because you're too strong. So they're going after the kids and they're going after friends and anybody that comes over. And your dog, and she told me, and your dog can sense them, and your dog's afraid of them. So I thought, okay, well, what do I do? So she gave me a remedy to do with red carnation and alcohol and a prayer sheet and candles. And so I went around the house and I was doing, the ritual. And when I went into Leah's room, I felt my grandma's energy and Mikey's energy. And they both said, do you want us to leave? Like telepathically, right? I don't hear it, but I sense it. I feel it. And I thought, no, you guys can stay. But once you start doing that, you're cleansing the house. So along with the bad went the good. So I felt great. I thought, okay, this is good. The air is lighter. I can breathe. This should be okay. So for a long while, everybody felt comfortable in the house again. Everybody felt comfortable in the house. But then I started hearing that again. They started saying, you know what? The bathroom, I feel like someone's watching me in the bathroom still. And I thought that's weird, because I went over the bathroom. So one night while I was at work in the club, some medium, a male medium, happened to walk in and he was just like trying to talk to people and whatever. And he stopped me and he said, Frank is still there. And I was like, excuse me, who's Frank? And he's like, the spirit that hides in the bathroom. And I was like, oh my God, how did you know that? I tried not to react. Like internally, I was like, how did he know that? But I tried not to react. I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you know that there's a very evil entity that hides in the bathroom. He's like, you were able to drive the other one away, a woman away, and she's hiding outside the bush, afraid of him. And she was only doing what he told her to do because she was afraid of him. But he hid, and he's still there, and he's getting stronger again. And I thought, okay, what do I do? And he was like, well, you're going to have to do it again. You need to be stronger. So after that, I thought, okay, well, I don't know what to do. I have already done what I can do. Then it just so happened that after a year, I think it was, I got pregnant with Sophia. And then I didn't feel anything at that point. I thought, okay, they're gone. It's completely gone. We're good because, I'm not feeling anything. But that wasn't so because everybody else could still feel it and they were feeling it stronger. And the kids were, scared. Bunny was scared. Friends that would come over, even when my husband, Will, when we were dating, he would come over, he would sense it too. He never liked to come over to my place because he could sense it too. Well, what ended up happening, I think, is when I got pregnant, I just wasn't feeling anything anymore. And that to me was scary because I thought, if I can't feel it, I can't keep it at bay. I can't keep it away, and it's going to get stronger. So I decided that, well, for many reasons, there were several reasons why I just couldn't stay in the house anymore. But mostly I was very scared. I thought, if I give birth and I have this baby here, how can I protect her? She's a newborn. She's very vulnerable. And I thought, how am I going to be able to protect her? I need to move. And one time my friends were, I was pregnant and they were making me a carrot cake. And everybody, it was during my baby shower and everybody was in the clubhouse and they stayed behind to make the carrot cake. They were alone and they were like talking and they heard some racket going on upstairs and they're like, I thought we were alone. And, they replied, well, yeah, we're alone. And then the door slammed shut to my bedroom and it was upstairs and they saw it just slam shut. And they're like, I didn't see anybody in there. They had a clear view of the room and the door had slammed shut. And so one of them says, maybe it was Pookie. And they're like, Pookie's standing right here next to me. So they both got super scared and just ran out. They just ran out of the house. And I thought, okay, for sure I need to move. So with that, I did move out of that Santa Ana house, and I'm sure it's still haunted. I don't know. It's been years. I walked out and I left, and there was always like really weird things going on that I'm not even bringing up right now because I can't even remember because it was a lot. So anyways, I moved out, and after I had Sophia, about a year later after I had her, I started to start feeling energy again. And I started having dreams again of past loved ones. And I just started feeling all the energy again, like my intuitive gifts started coming back. But then when I got pregnant with Emily, again, I wasn't feeling anything anymore. I don't know, that's weird. But after I had her, I was just so exhausted. She was still a newborn. I was so exhausted. I think I was very emotionally and mentally drained and vulnerable at the moment that one day I got up and I was breastfeeding her and bottle feeding her. I had to do both because she was such high needs. So one morning or in the middle of the night, I got up and I made a bottle. And as I was making the bottle, I felt an old man. And he felt very confused. And I don't, like I said, I don't see it. I just feel it. And so I kind of looked around. I didn't see anything. And I'm like, okay, I know what I'm feeling. And he feels confused. And so I ignored it. I went to the back to the baby to feed her. And then a few days later, Leah and I were in the kitchen and we were cooking. And she looked at me and I looked at her and she goes, Mommy, do you ever feel like someone's here? I go, you feel it too? And she goes, yeah. And I go, only in the kitchen, right? And she goes, yeah. And I go, yeah, it feels like it's an old man that's confused, that doesn't know he's dead. And so we weren't bothered by it. We just knew he was there. So I would say a few weeks later after that, again, I was in the kitchen. I was doing something in the kitchen and I felt him ask, what am I doing here? And so telepathically I said, I don't know. And then I said, you know you're dead, right? And he's like, I'm dead? And I said, yeah. I'm not really saying it. I'm just thinking it, right? And so I'm thinking, yes. And then he goes, well, where do I go? And I said, I don't know. Do you see a light anywhere? And I felt him say, is that the light? And it was a window behind me. And I said, is it really bright to you? And he said, yes. And I go, then yeah, that's the light. He goes, do I go there? And I said, yes. And I swear I felt his energy pass by me and out the window. And that's it. I didn't feel him anymore. And I'm like, did I just pass him? Did I pass him over? Like, can I do that? That's crazy. I don't know if I did or not. All I know is that after that, neither Leah nor I felt anything anymore. Now, after that, we moved into our house. That was at an apartment. After that, we moved into a house that we're buying. And when we moved in there, I felt that there was a curious energy in there, but it was very faint. It wasn't like an aggressive, I want to take care of you. It wasn't negative. It wasn't positive. It was just very faint, just curious, like, oh, let me see type of energy. And then I got pregnant again with Grace. And with Grace, I breastfed her for a year. And for some reason, during that pregnancy and breastfeeding journey, I didn't feel anything anymore. I knew something was there. Leah could sense it. We just knew something was there, but I really couldn't sense much because it was very faint. And at the moment, I just couldn't feel anything. So I didn't really do anything about it. And then we moved from that house to the current house that we're in. And again, I didn't feel anything when we were looking through this house. I didn't feel anything negative, nothing. But after a while of being here, I could feel like energy outside trying to get in. And I would say, no, you're not allowed to get in. I don't know you. You can't come in. And so I would keep it out. But I also wanted to strengthen my intuition. So this year since I've been living here, I've been, smudging. I've been lighting candles. I've been cleaning, energetically cleaning house, if you will, and saging and with Palo Santo and all that. Well, anyways, I wanted to strengthen my intuition. And so I started meditation. And I was really starting to manifest. I was really starting to get stronger. And whenever I would meditate, my visualization was very clear. I could see very clearly. I can manipulate like my thoughts. And then I started feeling an energy of a little girl. But she's also just curious. Like, it almost feels like this little girl, she doesn't want to be acknowledged. She doesn't want to be interacted with. She doesn't want to make herself known. It almost feels as if she just wants to be a spectator. Almost as if like we're an exhibit and she's just looking for entertainment. So she poses no threat. So I didn't really have a problem with it. Now, this past June, I mentioned that in the previous podcast episodes before, I mentioned that I had a heart attack this past June. And I feel like that was at my strongest that I was with my intuition. But when I went into the hospital and I started feeling this heart attack, I felt like an enormous pressure on my heart. It felt like a squeezing pressure on my heart. And then my left arm went like completely numb. And then I started like to pass out and I was like freaking out because, I was having this pain. I was having this chest pain. I was having this heart attack. And when I started closing my eyes and I started praying, I started calling like on my ancestors. I started calling on my guides and angels, telepathically. And as I started passing out, I felt like the room fill up with everybody that I was calling. And my main guide stepped forward and said, Veronica, it's okay. You need to go through this in order to evolve. And I responded with, bullshit, get me out of this. Help me, get me out of this. And of course, I didn't say it out loud. I was thinking it, right? And as I was like passing out, I like closed my eyes and suddenly I felt like the room come back alive and the staff was like really moving and trying to help. And I felt like after I thought that they just started helping staff to get me out of it. In order for my heart not to stop, it felt like they all started helping staff to stop it. Now, since the heart attack, I don't feel hardly anything anymore. It's like it's gone. I don't have the intuition. I don't have any dreams. I cannot visualize when meditating anymore. In fact, when I try to meditate now, I fall asleep. I'm not able to stay in that meditation mode, in that trance. I end up falling asleep. It's like it went away. And I'm having a really hard time being open. And I don't have any visitations. I don't have any dreams. I don't feel anything anymore. I feel very closed off. It almost seems as if like when my body is physically weak, my mind has to stay strong in order for my body to recover. And when I'm emotionally weak or vulnerable, that's when I'm more open. So I'm hoping that once I fully recover from my heart attack, once I'm fully physically recovered, I'm hoping that I'll be able to be open again. Because like I said, it's a big difference from when I was a little girl. When I was a little girl, I was very scared. I was very closed off. Now that I'm a lot older and there's more information on how to build up your intuition and how to get stronger and how to control it and not be scared of it, and also how to protect yourself energetically, like with smudging or with crystals or, just your own mental state and your own spiritual guides, it's a completely different experience. So that's it. That is my ghost stories and haunted houses and spiritual visitors. I hope you really enjoyed this. If you did, please rate and review if you can on the directory that you're listening to. And also take a screenshot of it and put it on Instagram and tag me on it so that you can enter the giveaway. Don't forget the giveaway. You have one more week.